I feel in part responsible for what happened this year on the Iditarod Trail, and I pledge to do a more in-depth, and if they can't make it mandatory, make it a voluntary rookie meeting that lasts more than one day at my kennel, where I need to, a bunch of mistakes were made this year on the Iditarod that from a professional point of view are so asinine that if you have 8 foot of snow, you don't leave your dogs exposed to the howling winds at 40 below. You dig down in the soft snow. And being a professional dog racer, I don't even think about sharing that with you, because there is so many things we do instinctively, that the dog care is one of them, that we just, and you know how assume is spelled, you know, I assume that certain skills are required. So now we have to go back a little bit and go to the, unlike, a lot like what we do with our society, we dumb it down to the lowest common denominator, and now we need to discern where that lowest common denominator is, and it's my responsibility in part, being a mentor, to teach rookies, new beginning racers to have more tools in their chest to better take care of their dogs. So it's definitely a 2-year process, and from now on you'll be even more educated by the time you hit the Iditarod Trail.
Is there any kind of program in place where a stockbroker from New York could finance somebody whose dream it is to run the Iditarod but can't come up with that kind of money?
Absolutely. There's all kinds of different programs. There is, you know, there is scholarships. There is like I forget what the Leonard Seppala scholarship is, of somebody on off the road system. You know, usually it's targeted to somebody that lives in the bush, which is very difficult to come up with the finances, in part because of geographic difficulties. So yeah, there is all kinds of different mentorship.
So somebody that can't come up with the money could seek out sponsorship.
Absolutely, we all do.
Oh,
that's how I make most of my living. Is I have and I work with sponsors that see some sort of merit, I don't know why, of working with me. And if you're astute about it, you give back as much as you receive. Otherwise, it's a one-way deal, and it probably won't last very long. But I try to give back, and I'm fortunate to have had several of my sponsors for over 20 years now. 2 people, the Eagle Dog Food Company and my transportation sponsor in Nome, they were in the Elite Before Championship Club, which you could never join now, because if somebody sponsors you before you win, that's a great honor. That's a big deal, and we give them, of course, preferential treatment because they have believed in me and they help me grow. But to this day, they don't come to me. To this day, I still got to beat the bushes. I still got to negotiate deals and look for, I call it tuition nowadays. You know, 2 kids in college, so join the club. Yes.
Being a dog owner, we always talk about having our once-in-a-lifetime dog. There's just that one. Who is it for you and why?
I really try not to. I train my head to be happiest with the dog I'm interacting at the moment, to be most content in the place that I'm at, and you right now are my most favorite person in the world. That's sort of a mindset. Of course, knowing about 500 dogs by name and about 10 people, I've had very, very many special dogs. I got so many dog stories. I'm writing a book. I could write many books. Right now I hate writing books. It just takes a lot of time. It's just, don't count on it. I've been pestered so much, and I got lots of stories together. But you know, over the years you have special dogs, and they end up being super lead dogs or dogs that connect with you. You know, I can tell stories of steering dogs without saying a word. I'm thinking you're going right, and you're going right. You know, and I'm thinking you're going left, and you're going left. You know, that connection with special dogs is pretty incredible. You know, a dog that has taught me a lot is Eleanor. The Storm of 91 is a pretty big story, and would be a big chapter in the book. Is a big chapter in the book. '91 is probably the biggest storm anybody has traveled through in recent history. It's quite a while ago now. 5 of us left the second last checkpoint, White Mountain, 77 miles from the finish line, and the local people said, "Don't go, it's not doable." But it was about like this, calm and nice and no big deal, you know. Maybe a few big snowflakes were coming straight, fluttering just straight down, no big deal. Well, I was 5th. Susan Butcher was 1st. She had won the race. She had forgotten about the last 77 miles, but in her mind she had won the race, and she kind of made her victory speech in White Mountain, and then left. Rick Swenson left, Joe Runyon left, Timmy Osmore left, and I was 5th in row. And after a couple hours on the trail, it got pretty windy, and you could still see. I could see as far as the end of this room probably, and I started having a head-on with the dog team, and it was my girlfriend coming this way. Susan Butcher for years was my girlfriend, because being a happily married man, I'm not allowed to chase women. And by then she had still finished in front of me, so she was the only girl I was allowed to chase. So and for a long time we told stories on each other, of course. We became good friends, but also strong competitors. So she came head on, and I was still going in the right direction, and she says, well, it's not doable. Rick Swenson is freezing up there. He's losing his hands. He can't find his headlight. It can't be done. But knowing you, you're probably going to find out for yourself. I said, damn right. And on we went. And then Joe Runyon a few minutes later came, and we had a head-on with Joe, and he says, it can't be done. I can't do it. I'm going back to White Mountain. And I said, well, you know, I'm going to keep on trying. And I started having little butterflies, you know. I'm still that arrogant kid from Switzerland that don't know much, you know. I only had, what, 8 Iditarods 6 or 7 Iditarods under my belt. That was my 8th. Then I have a head-on with Timmy Osmore, who I had worked with in the summertime, and he's a pretty hard-working dude and pretty tough. I had high regards of him. He finished 4th in the Iditarod 4 years in a row, and not very many tougher people than he. And he just shook his head. He doesn't say much. He's kind of like Rowan, and, you know, just shook his head and kept on going. Well, but I also learned some basic math. 5 take away 3. Now I'm in 2nd place on the Iditarod Trail, and I got 70 miles to go, maybe now 60. And my friend Rick Swenson is somewhere supposedly losing his hands and not knowing where he's going. So my goal was to go forward, plus I had enough food and I had trust in my dogs. And then it got pretty bad. Then it got bad enough to where I was the lead dog, and that's where Eleanor couldn't comprehend 40-knot winds at the 45-degree angle going over hill and dale. We're on the coast, we're going up and over mountains, and you don't follow a straight line. You can't take a compass heading, you got to find the trail. And it was just too difficult for her, so I put on a line on my waist, and Eleanor and I walked for 27 hours side by side. That does something to you. You know, it's the unspoken bond that you develop with the dog and the dog team in a situation like that is I've never been in combat, but it's very much like being in combat. And only people that have gone through something like that can really understand. And if you have mastered situations with special dogs like that, you never forget them, you know. And the next year, and in that storm, and I openly tell people I came in 2nd. I mean, we did for 27 hours. Swenson could have been a mile ahead of me. He could have been an hour ahead of me. For that whole day and then some, we mimicked each other's moves. We were shut down for about 4 hours because it was so bad. We got going again, and he pulled into safety 20 miles from the finish line, and he told the media, don't say a word. And I snuck into safety with my headlight off, because it started getting 20 miles from the finish, it started getting a little better visibility, and I snuck into safety. As I'm riding into safety, I hear on my radio, now we're in radio reception from Nome, I hear that Swenson had come and gone an hour later.